Welcome to this lesson. The course again remains Introduction to Sociology, and the course code is CSS111. In this lesson, we are going to be looking at two aspects, social mobility and collective behavior, right? So, two topics here, social mobility on the one hand and collective behavior on the other hand. So we are going to be taking them one after the other. So beginning with social mobility. Now, but before we dig deep into these topics, let's quickly look at the intended learning outcomes for this lesson. All right, so these are things that you are expected to do at the end of the lesson. So at the end of the lesson, you should be able to explain the term social mobility. You should also be able to list and explain the types of social mobility. On the other hand, you should be able to define the term collective behavior, explain the forms of collective behavior, and analyze collective behavior as a breakdown in social order. All right, so those are the key points of this lesson, and of course the expectation that at the end you should be able to do. All right, so let's take on the first topic of this lesson. Of course, the social mobility. What is social mobility? We're looking at the definition of social mobility. Now, social mobility entails the movement usually of individuals or groups, all right, usually of individuals or groups between the different positions within the social system or within the system of stratification, in any society. All right, movement, the key word, usually of individuals or groups between the different positions within the system of stratification. Remember, we had talked about social stratification, right, where we have different strata right here. So the movement of individuals within this stratum, within this strata, right, these different levels of stratification is what is called social mobility, right? As individuals change positions, as they change hierarchy of positions, all right, move from one level to the other, whether up or down, all right, at any level, it is called social mobility. That is the movement of individuals from one level to the other. Even the movement of groups, all right, is also termed social mobility. All right, in other words, it is the movement up, all right, movement from down, up, or down, from up, down, within the stratification system, all right, from up, down, down, up, anyhow, okay, within the stratification system. So this is a brief definition here. That movement is termed social mobility. Okay. All right. Now within social mobility, you have two types. It could be intergenerational mobility or intra-generational mobility. Intergenerational mobility simply means that movement within a family of origin and one's own class or status. All right. It could be movement from here to here. Okay, within a family of origin. For instance, a boy who was born as a prince and in some time becomes a king. All right, that's intergenerational mobility. Then intragenerational mobility entails movement during an individual's career. All right, as you grow in your job career, in your profession, that growth in professional career is termed intragenerational mobility. All right, so let's move on to the next topic here, or subject, types of social mobility. Let's see the types of social mobility. We have about 6 different types of social mobility: individual mobility, group mobility, career mobility, generational mobility, vertical and horizontal mobility. So we'll be taking them one after the other as well. So let's take the first one, individual mobility. Individual mobility. Now, individual mobility has to do with the movement of individuals from one social class to another as a result of their educational attainment or economic growth. This is quite simple, as you, based on your educational attainment, you keep moving, all right, from one social class to another, or based on the wealth, your economic growth, all right, your economic strength, what you have been able to acquire, your social level tends to change. So it is on the basis of educational attainment or economic strength that individuals tend to move from one social class to another. All right, that is termed individual mobility. Now let's see the next one, which is group mobility. Group mobility. As a group, people can move based on individual performance in the group. Group mobility has to do with the movement of a group of individuals from one social status to another, usually from a lower one to a higher one. The group of upward movements may reflect hard work on the part of the group members, all right, or luck. It is the performance of the group members that tends to give the group that that change of social status. All right, if they weren't recognized before, based on their performance, they may be recognized by the society, or even government may now recognize them, and their social status could change based on the performance of the group members. Okay. All right, let's see the next one. Career mobility. Career mobility. Career mobility, as the name implies, career mobility. This entails the changes in the social status of an individual as a result of his or her lifetime achievement. All right, whatever the individual has been able to achieve in his or her lifetime, positively or negatively, could change that individual's status. All right, it is based on that lifetime achievement, that the individual's social status, those are keywords, all right, social status tends to change. Okay, once an individual's social status change based on lifetime achievement, that type of social change in social status is called career mobility. Career mobility. All right, let's look at the generational mobility. The generational mobility. Generational mobility. This relates to any change in the status that occurs between a child and a parent. The child rises above the status of which he or she was born. All right, so this is more of a change of social status within the family, within the home. All right, as the child gradually moves from a childhood status to adulthood status, that change of social status is termed generational mobility. All right, next one is the vertical mobility. Vertical mobility, we've used this vertical line to show you that it is that mobility that will happen either upward, all right, or downward within the social stratification system. Vertical social mobility refers to the movement either upward or downwards across various strata. Promotion and demotion are a very good example. All right, when for instance one individual is promoted, all right, it's movement upwards, another is demoted somewhere, it is movement downwards. So that type of mobility, it's termed vertical mobility. Mobility that you either move upwards or downwards. All right, next one is the horizontal mobility. Horizontal mobility. You can see the horizontal line, it is flat. All right, it is flat. This is movement within the same level. You are not changing any level. This refers to movement on the same status. For example, a bank manager in Ibadan can be taken to Lagos to become a bank manager, to become the new bank manager. Okay, so the individual remains a bank manager, So that movement is only a change of environment from Ibadan to Lagos, all right? So, but then the status remains the same. That type of movement is termed horizontal mobility. All right, let's now look into our first class activity for this lesson. Just to be sure that you have understood the lesson. The first one is, what do you understand by social mobility? We've discussed that. Remember, we talked about movement of individual or groups within the social stratification system. What state the various types of social mobility? Okay, you should be able to attempt these simple questions. Now let's move on to the second aspect of this lesson, which is collective behavior. Collective behavior. Collective behavior. By way of the nomenclature of this topic, you should be able to know that it entails behaviors that happens collectively. All right, behaviors that happens collectively. Everybody tends to behave the same. A good example is the NSAS protest. All right, it was a collective behavior where everybody tends to behave the same. Now let's look at the definition of collective behavior. What is collective behavior? What is collective behavior? The study of it is the study of coordinated and organized social movement. All right, the behavior tends to be coordinated, tends to be organized. All right, the seemingly spontaneous eruption of common behavioral pattern. All right, like I said, the NSAS protest is a very good example. All right, collective behavior can be defined as the study of coordinated, organized social movement. It is also the seemingly spontaneous eruption of common behavioral pattern. All right, where everybody tends to behave the same. Suddenly, everybody tends to behave the same. And examples include responses to natural disaster. All right, responses to natural disaster. That the action once natural disaster occur tends to be the same. Riots, lynching, crazes, fads, fashion, rumor, looms, all of those are very good examples. Like the recent NSAS protest, all right, everybody tends to behave the same. You can see the group of these are people here in the cartoon picture tend to behave the same, right, as they are protesting or whatever, tend to behave the same. Now, Gustav Le Bon is recognized as the grandfather of collective behavior theory. In case this is just for your knowledge. Gustav Le Bon is the grandfather of collective behavior theory. All right, let's see the forms of collective behavior. There are different forms of collective behavior. First one here is panic. They're actually self-explanatory. Panics, all right, this has to do with danger. When people are faced with danger such as fire outbreak, etc., they tend to be panic, and that fear pushes people to behave in the same manner. Then crowds, all right, more structured. It is more structured than panic actually. It is actually guided by social norms. It is these social norms that persuade people to behave in the same manner, right? That in fact it is these social norms that makes it more structured and also compel the group members to work towards achieving the crowd's goal. All right. Fashion, a great though brief enthusiasm. All right, it is though brief. You should remember that fashion doesn't last for too long. A great though brief enthusiasm among a relatively large number of people for a particular innovation. All right, this is quite common. For instance, the innovation of the jean trouser for ladies. It was a great fashion. It trended. It's still trending up till now, but then people are beginning to overlook that. All right, fashion happens a lot. Then rumors. All right, rumors, an unverified story that is spread from one person to another. It is also a form of collective behavior where everybody tends to begin to carry that information around. Social movement. This refers to the more or less organized effort of a large number of people to produce some social change. The essence of social movement is to produce social change. All right, when people move in mass to protest, try to change government policies. All right, that type of collective movement is social movement. Public opinion, all right, this deals with the aggregate views of a collective large number of people on a particular public issue or government policy at a given time. When people begin to air their opinions, air their views, right, air their views, try to discuss government policies or public issue, it is a form of collective behavior termed public opinion. Okay. All right, I think we have now done justice to collective behavior. Now, there is one aspect that you have to take as your self-study. You have to look into collective behavior as a breakdown in social order. When does collective behavior begins to violate the norms of the society? When does collective behavior becomes outlawed in such a way that it breaks down law and order, it becomes a problem to social order? Please read about this, study about it on your own. Okay. All right, before we go, you need to take your second class activity, class activity 2. What is collective behavior? List and explain the forms of collective behavior. I've done all of that. Try and ensure you attempt these questions on your own. Once again, please take your studies seriously. I will see you again in the next class. Thanks for reading, for watching this video up till this time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.